Teacher, why is English so hard? Hello, my name is Arthur. I'm one of the teachers here at Vinicius Rodrigues Inglês, and today I'm here to talk about whether or not English is a hard language to learn. Do you think English is hard? Have you tried to learn English? Have you been trying to learn English lately? Do you speak English already? And what would you say? Do you think English is a hard language to learn or not? Well, as you all know, English is an extremely important language to learn. If you want to work for a multinational company these days, you need to know English. You need to be able to speak the language fluently in order to have business meetings or to run reports for your company or whatever. And also, if you want to travel, if you want to go abroad, no matter what country you travel to, you're gonna have to know English if you want to have a nice communication with people. If you're from Brazil, you speak a language that is not very common in other countries. I mean, most of the Portuguese speakers in the world are in Brazil, and that means that if you step out of Brazil, you're not gonna find many of them abroad. You're not gonna be able to establish a good communication in Portuguese. So you need to know English. And if it's something so important, why is it so hard? Well, is it? Everybody says that English is a hard language to learn, but is it though? Let me tell you something. Let me give you a principle that sounds obvious. Though it sounds obvious, it's not put into practice and people don't consider the consequence of that principle in real life. English sounds so hard because English and Portuguese are different languages. I'm going to say it again. English and Portuguese are different languages. Sounds obvious? I know it does. So why do you keep asking why things are the way they are? Why do you keep saying that things don't make sense when you try to learn? Why are you trying to memorize grammar? English and Portuguese are different languages. Things will not make sense if you try to understand English, if you try to look at English wearing Portuguese lenses. That's not gonna work. If you try to learn English in light of what makes sense in Portuguese, you're never gonna be able to learn it. So I know that just saying that Portuguese and English are different languages is not enough, but let me teach you to derive a few principles from that truth. So they're different languages. Portuguese is not English. What are the consequences of that truth for me? First of all, stop asking why. Teacher, why do I say carro vermelho in Portuguese and in English I have to say vermelho carro, red car? Stop asking why. Why is it that I need to switch the position of the verb and the noun when I need to ask a question? Stop asking why. Stop asking why. Let me tell you something. Knowing why something is the way it is in English is not going to help you speak. Babies don't learn that mommy is mommy and daddy is daddy by learning why mommy is mommy and daddy is daddy. Babies just repeat what they hear, what they learn, what makes sense based on what they're seeing around them. Okay, they just repeat, which leads us to our next principle: accept and repeat. Accept and repeat. Memorize those two verbs. When you hear something being pronounced in a way, being said in a way, it might not make sense to you in that moment, but it doesn't need to. As we said, stop asking why. So instead of asking why, what do I need to do? You need to accept and repeat. Don't wonder why things are said the way they are. Just accept it and repeat it. It's correct. You know, if it's been said by a native person, it's correct. No, I'm not saying that it's necessarily grammatically correct. They might make mistakes as well, just like you and I, we make Portuguese mistakes, right? That doesn't mean we don't know how to speak. Doesn't mean that we don't know our own language. Of course we do. We just make mistakes. That's normal. So if you hear a native speaker saying something, try to repeat what they're saying. Just accept that it is the way it is and repeat it, okay? You don't need to understand why. What you need to do is accept and repeat. And last but not least, don't worry about speaking perfectly. Do not worry about speaking perfectly. Look, you're gonna make a bunch of mistakes when you're speaking English, okay? You don't need to speak perfectly, you just need to speak. Fluency is about maintaining a conversation, making the conversation flow. If you interrupt the conversation because you want to speak perfectly, then you're not speaking, okay? You need to speak. Perfect grammar is not your priority, all right? You need to speak, you need to develop a conversation with people. If you make mistakes, who cares? You need to speak. So if you, of course you will make mistakes actually, because if you don't ask why things are the way they are, and if you just accept and repeat, throughout the process, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. But believe me, it's gonna make things way faster. And guess what? Way easier. One of the reasons that you think English is so hard is because you keep asking why. It's because instead of repeating what you're listening to, you're just trying to understand why things are the way they are and you don't accept it. And you're trying to have a perfect grammar when you don't need to worry about that right now. That's why things seem so difficult. They're not. You're just making things difficult when you do those three things, okay? So instead of doing those three things, follow the three principles that I gave you. Don't ask why. Accept and repeat. And don't worry about having perfect grammar. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Hit the like button, leave a comment below with other questions that you may have about the English learning process. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.